When this town was founded, this was the height of westward expansion, right here. They across the creek was nothing. It's the wilderness. When I think of the wilderness, I think of like Alaska. Well, Alaska started on the other side. So anyway, up until the 1730s, this is completely unexplored. This was the wilderness. Not even the Indians lived here. This was the Indian hunting ground, but the Indians actually lived down close to the river. So they finally opened this up for expansion, for settlement in the 1730s. Within 10 years, there were about 600 people living on this side of the river.
Bird up in the tree.
So around in the late 1730s, around 1740, the farmers, they were all farmers. But they were no longer subsistence farmers. They had a crop, but there was no roads out here, so there's no way to market their crops. So they sent a delegation. So we got the road out here, and then they said, well, now we want a town. Give them an inch, right? So that's not what we started right here. Because the farmers wanted a town to do business with. Actually, not do business, but to build the original house. This was built in 1741 by Martin Eichelberger, a German, came through the port of Philadelphia. He built the first floor, and then a few years later, he built the second floor. That's called half timber. You see these hash marks in the beams? Yeah. That was put in by him as a guide to building this. When we go upstairs, we can see hash marks in there too. So this is all covered up with siding for hundreds of years. In the 1960s, York was expanding, was growing. That building over there was Sears and Roebuck. And this is a little nice. So the city said, well, let's just tear this down. And luckily, back in those days, when they deconstructed, they did it by hand, sledgehammers. Today, they just bring a bulldozer and knock down the walls. But anyway, the very first thing they did is they tore off the siding, and they saw this. This has been covered up for hundreds of years. It's like something out of the Twilight Zone. Yeah. So they got someone from the Smithsonian to come up, take a look at it. He said, this is the real thing. The History Society purchased it and renovated it, and for the last 50-some years, it's been a museum.
Yeah, probably the bulldozer would just knock it down.
Yeah, we would never know. We were lost.
Bye-bye history.
I forgot my flashlight. Oh well. When you get to be my age, you forget a lot of stuff. Anyway, this is what you can pass that around. This is what it originally looked like. See, up here, the siding, that's what it looked like before they took the siding off.
Oh, yeah.
Right. This is a representation of what it could have looked like. We don't know exactly what it looked like because there were no blue. Falscraft started here in York, lasted 200 years, and it was bought out by a corporation, and that corporation was bought out by et cetera, et cetera. So the people of York was all handmade. That used to be a tree branch. And then they attached a barrel. Now the trigger mechanism they'd have to order from England. Like I said, this is just a regular musket, but the Pennsylvania long rifle was. So this is open as a tavern. A tavern back in the 1700s was like a bed and breakfast. Today, this was the kitchen area. This is the main cooking area. You couldn't just buy another one. So what they did is they glued it and sewed it back together again. That's a real definition of fixing. That would ward off bad luck. There's a difference between bad luck and evil. If you fall and break your arm, that's bad luck. If someone pushes you down, that's evil. But anyway, so here's where the proprietor would serve his wares. You'd have to imagine that there were tables all over the place here. The proprietor would not provide you with utensils. You had to bring your own. Or they'd just eat with their hands. They heard about the Boston Massacre, with the different battles of the Revolution. During the French and Indian War, York was a very, like this. I seriously doubt if this room was here at the time. They might have this somewhere else. Right here is your main business area. But anyway, for the wealthier patrons, they could get their own room. The big talking point here is this hole. When they were renovating this, they couldn't figure out what that was for. It's too small to be a window. It's at an inconvenient place for a window. It's an All Souls window. The people were very superstitious. They thought that if you were here and you died here, your soul needed a passageway. So that's what it is. You said you had relatives from Red Lion. The other year they found an old farmhouse down there, the remnants of an old farmhouse that had an All Souls window in it. So it's a cultural thing. It wasn't just once and done. So, moving back out here.
Yeah. I read when they printed the Declaration.
That's cool. I like the paint on the wall.
I'm sorry?
40% of the Declaration of Independence, when they print them, 40% was printed in German.
Probably, especially in Pennsylvania.
Smell like cedar.
Especially in Pennsylvania. Oh,
No, I guess that's the building next door. The
there's a
Sears.
steep. I could charge extra money just to show you the way back.
Oh, they are pretty steep.
And this is the common room. I keep making references to a bed and breakfast. This would be your bedroom. Now, if the proprietor didn't even give you utensils, he didn't give you a bed either. So the men had to sleep on the floor. The wagoners would bring along their straw or blankets and just lay on the floor. When this is filled to capacity, this could hold 40 men. So you're just running a little bit of elbow space in here. And back in colonial days, personal hygiene is a lot different than it is today. They only bathe once a year. So on a hot August night up here with 40 guys up here,
Sticks
it's a
for
right
lay.
place to be. And this is our baby here. This is the original wall. This is the original wall that was built in the 1740s. I said before about the hash marks, and you can see them in here, 2, 1. They would use that. These are all pre-cut. And first they would put down the guide work here. Then we put in the lab work. There's no nails or tacks in here. These are just sticks that are interwoven. And on top of that, they would put a very thick layer of mud and straw. They use manure as a bonding agent. And on top of this, they put the plaster. The plaster is made out of crushed up oyster shells, which they had to do themselves. So if you're going to plaster all the walls, these are thousands, tens of thousands of oyster shells that had to be crushed up by hand. Colonial life compared to today was brutal, brutally hard. But back then it was just, they didn't know that. It was the original floorboards there. Those floorboards were put down in the 1740s. This is where the family would stay. The Ackelbergers had 9 children. God bless them. So that's where the parents would stay, and the children would sleep out here.
Look at that.
Back in those
Look
days,
at that, Becky.
instead of sleeping lengthwise the way we do today, they'd sleep widthwise.
More people.
They were a lot shorter,
Yeah.
and like you said, you can get more people in here. Here's a little trundle bed for the smaller kids. And before they went to bed at night, they take this thing, it looks like a clothespin. I do kid tours sometimes, and they don't know what a clothespin is. You know, they, what's that? But anyway, they put this in here and tighten this up and tie it off. Called sleep tight. That's where we get that phrase from. Then they'd fill this up with straw or grass, and that would be their mattress. They had 9 children, but not at one time. back in colonial days, when a child turned like 10 years old, they were sent out. They were turned out to be servants, or if it's a tavern, I'm on the bill, a lot of kids work downstairs, but there wouldn't be 9 children living here at one time. And like I said, everything is real. So this, now all these come out, this comes apart, but this isn't someone's barn for God knows how long. And what this was, they made candles out of beeswax or bayberry or tallow, which is animal fat. So what they would do is they'd have a pot of wax down there, and they would take this and dip it in. And you can tell, just by walking in, this is a completely different building. Although this was only built 10 years after the tavern. I mean, you look there and then into there, and what a monumental difference this is. Yeah. This is built by the Chambers family in 1752. The Chambers family was very, very wealthy. This was an example of how the other half lived. The reason it was built right next to the tavern is because the Chambers bought the tavern. Story has it that the Eichelbergers got tired of the taxes and they gave up the tavern business. So the Chambers bought this. This door would not have long poles, and they put this up against on those hooks, and they turn this from 2 rooms into one very large room, like a ballroom. That's something else about the Pennsylvania Dutch.
That's ridiculous. I've never seen that.
All right, don't do that. They didn't take the dancing and all this. They didn't think that was very good at all. But they appreciated the money that it brought in. This is a very historic room. This house was rented out by General Horatio Gates. In 1777, Philadelphia was captured by the British. So Congress went on the run, and they ended up here in York. So General Gates came to York. He rented this house. And during that time, there was, I won't say a conspiracy, there was a movement to replace General Washington. Is that a tiny bedroom? This probably wasn't here. This is probably servants' quarters at the time. The bedroom's actually on the 3rd floor. We don't go up there. That's just office and storage space today. But the big talking point here is this box here that survived all these hundreds of years. That's a hat box for a tri-cornered hat. And the rope bed, we saw a rope bed over in the other room. Now the architecture. This is called Georgian architecture, and the tavern is all Germanic. One of the highlights of Georgian architecture is this long breezeway here. That's the front door. If you open up both these doors, you get a really nice breeze. That's why all the rooms are set off to the side. Let's start over here.
Shotgun.
Yeah. This is the food preparation room. You did the cooking over there at the summer kitchen. But this is where you actually prepare the plates and everything. This is nice. This has a dual purpose. It could either be a butter mold or a candy mold. This is all hand carved. Then they would pour the butter or the syrup in here, and when it would solidify, they'd have that really nice design. This is a portable heater. They would just put the coals in here, and you'd carry this from room to room. There's your spice cabinet. They had locks on it. Back in those days, spices were very, very valuable, so they locked them up. And on that platter there behind you is unique. It's made out of pewter. It's on a slight incline. You notice there's a divider there, and the divider has holes in it. So they would put the meat on the left-hand side, and all the fat would flow into that little reservoir there. Like for one of the George Foreman grill. And then of course, then they would recycle the fat into candles. Down there, there's more hearts on the hearth. And over here would be the dining area. we know that they had this type of china because those shards were dug up in the backyard. And I said, everything here is a period piece. I got the very first time. This is Delft china made in 1750. Delft means it was made in the Netherlands. China shut down trade with the West a couple times. This is the sitting room. This desk here is called a secretary. That's all original. I'm told that everything, the glass, the screws, everything is original. That's made in 1782 while the revolution was still going on. It was shipped here to York in the beginning of the 1800s, but that is all original. This thing here is unique. This thing here is a novelty item. It's called a beeswax candle. What the novelty is for every inch that you pull up the wick, it'll burn for exactly 1 hour. They had watches, they had clocks. This is just a novelty item. This is also called a courting candle. So if you had a daughter of dating age and a young man came calling, the dad would pull this up with the idea that when that goes out, you go out. Here's an old sampler. This is also part of the courting process. This was a sample of what the woman could do. And she would leave this out. So some go, that's nice. Will you marry me? It might not be that easy. Over here, there was this bone china here. I said, today's opening day. By the end of the year, I'll have this situated the way I want it. But anyway, there's no holder on this. What they would do was I'll use this as smaller. They would take the tea and they would pour it into the cup and into the saucer. And it was considered very, very chic to be able to drink from the saucer. That all ended the day they invented television. So, let's move on over there. Is another beautiful piece of furniture, this 4-poster bed. Like I said, I've been doing this for many, many years. And over the years, I've discovered that these poles are not equal. This didn't come off a machine. This is all hand carved. Like that pole over there is thinner than these poles over here. So this is an original bed. What they would do is instead of putting the curtains up in the window, they would put the curtains along the side of it. The inner squares would be your vegetables, your beans, your corn, etc. Along the outside was your herbs and your spices. This was completely utilitarian garden. This was their pharmacy. This was whatever they needed, they grew in here. They didn't grow flowers. The common man didn't. He was too busy to have a flower garden. And these oyster shells. His workshop was on the first floor, the living quarters were on the second floor. What makes that's unique for a couple of different reasons. That's an original building, but this is not the original site. That building was actually located about a half-mile down where our high school is. And in the 1960s, when they were expanding the high school, rather than knock that down, the school board donated that to the History Society. They moved that there in one piece. We have pictures of that. Just put it in the back of an old flatbed truck and brought it down here. What else makes it unique is historically, that's the last time any school board anywhere donated anything to anyone for any reason.
Wow.
I might have to fact check. That is a reproduction. That is an original building. That was a reproduction. That was built in 1976 to commemorate the bicentennial. They used to be road homes. And in 1972, Hurricane Ida took out all of the road homes. So we had this flat plain there, and they built that to commemorate the bicentennial. So there's benches in here you sit down. This is my favorite part of the tour. But anyway, this was the original colonial courthouse, the county courthouse. And for most of its existence, like I said, it stayed up until 1841, almost 100 years. This was the center of all they had.
We out of this one, everybody. Like, share, subscribe.
Smash it.
Peace.
Smash it.